In today's video, I'm going to show you how to add a custom touch to any woodworking project. The system I use is from a company called Slab. They have a variety of inlays, and I've used it in anything from cutting boards, tabletops, and most recently I did it on an Arbor Build for my fence gate. I had gotten a ton of questions asking how I set up the bit and how I use the system, so I decided to make a video. Most of the content that I have is on my Instagram, so I suggest giving me a follow so you can check that out. Alright, let's get started. Okay, so you just got your kit and you want to know how to set the bit and how to set the correct height. Now, I did get this custom base from Slab because the one that I had before that came with the router just was not centering correctly. I'm going to show you how to center it, don't worry, but just so you know, they do make these custom bases. And now I'm using this Makita palm router. I highly recommend it. It's really easy to use and it is battery operated, so you can just charge it and it'll be ready to go. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is remove any bit that's already in the router. Now, I don't have the battery installed, so this thing is not going to turn on, so it's pretty safe. And then all you need to do is take the wrenches that came with the router, put the bottom one on, and then you can take the top one, which I lost the original, but you can use it any other one. And if you're going to loosen it, you need to put the top wrench behind the bottom one, and then just pull together, and it'll loosen. Sometimes it can get kind of get a little bit of gunk in there, so you can just tap it loose. It'll come right out and you're good to go. So if you need to center the bit, what you need to do is get this centering pin that comes with the kit. It's really easy to do. You put it in. You leave it a little bit high, pretty much as high as you can go without it falling out. Make sure you have a good hold on it. Just give it a quick little tighten. It's good to go. And then you take your base. Now what you're supposed to do is loosen these 4 screws, right? But I'm not going to do that because it was a pain centering this thing, and I'm just trust me, all you have to do is loosen these screws. So you pop in the base and you let it slide all the way through to where you have a pretty good hold on the pin. All you got to do is lock it into place, and then you tighten all the screws. Now this is centered, you're good to go. You can now remove this, centering pin, and install your bit. Now, same process, drop the bit in. Now, if you want to tighten it, you're going to do the same thing that you did to loosen it, except this time, the bottom wrench is going to go behind the top one. Just squeeze it once, and that's good to go. This thing isn't going anywhere. It's tight, and you can add the base now. Okay, now the base is on, you have your bit centered, it's ready to go. Now you need to know exactly how to set it so that it's going to make the perfect pocket for these inlays. So the easiest way that I found is to actually use the inlay template to help you set the height, because the inlay template is at the exact same height as the bushing right here. So all you have to do is account for the space from the bushing to the top of the bit. So I'm gonna show you how to do that. Okay, so all you have to do is set 2 inlays next to each other and then set the template on top of it. So this is gonna help you, once it touches the bottom of, or the top of this table, it's gonna be set at the perfect height. So just loosen this little clamp. You can set the router on top. And once you tighten the clamp, make sure you put a little bit of downward pressure so it's all tight. Once you tighten this, it's gonna be perfectly set. Okay, so you can also just kind of eyeball it to make sure that it set it at the right height. I don't know if you can tell on the camera, but another good idea is to leave the bit a little bit lower, so that if it's not set at the correct height, you can always just sand off the top piece once it dries. So as long as you don't go too deep, then you should be good to go. But I'm going to show you one way to make sure that you get it right when you're making these adjustments. Okay, so now once your bit is centered, you can go ahead and make your first test run with the system. So you just take the main frame, kind of place it wherever you'd like. I'm using this 1/2 inch MDF just to show you how the process works. And you can take a clamp, put your first one down, and you put your second one wherever. And then you put the actual inlay template in. Then I'm gonna go ahead and run the router in here with the vacuum setup to clean it all out, and we're gonna drop in the inlay and see how the fit works. Okay, now one thing to keep in mind is depending on the actual inlay that you're using, it could have these sharp edges. Since you're using a router with a round bit, it's not going to give you the sharp edges, especially like up here on the top and then on this sharp edge right here. So you're going to have to come in and do this manually with a chisel. Now, I just use this old beat up chisel and just kind of start going at the corners until you clean them up enough to where you can slide it in the inlay. Just keep doing that. I'm gonna clean up this other one, and I'm gonna pop this in, and it should fit pretty much perfectly. So let me clean this up, and I'll show you guys how it works. Okay, so I've cleaned up the edges, and I'm ready to drop this thing in to make sure it fit. The only thing is, what I suggest, especially if it's the first time you're doing it, you should make a few holes in different places so that if you need to adjust the bit, you can. So just take a drill, you could even go with a bigger bit, just so it's easier to tap out. Okay, so I'm going to drop in the inlay, and it should be just slightly above the MDF once it's tapped in. So just take a little rubber mallet, just give it a few. Alrighty. So, as you can see, it's slightly above here, same here. So once you glue this in and sand it down, it's going to be perfect. It's going to be perfectly flush, and you no longer have to worry about it being too low. The problem would be if the inlay was lower than the MDF, because then you'd have to sand this entire thing down. Let's say you're making a cutting board, it would pretty much be ruined. You'd have to plane it or sand it all down again. So let's say your depth is set. You can use this as a template. Each time just make different ones. That way you know your bit height is set correctly. And now what you can do is just flip it over and knock it out. So that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, so I'm just gonna take a little Sharpie. Should drop right out. And now you can use this one in your actual piece. Once your bit is centered and set correctly, you know that you can start using it for any of your projects. Like I said before, I've used this on cutting boards, tables, and what I'm doing right now is adding it to my Arbor. This system is awesome. It's really easy to use, very user friendly, and it's one way to distinguish yourself from the tons of woodworkers out there. Anytime I add these inlays to my boards, I get a ton of interest and I sell them all pretty quickly. And the last thing I wanted to mention is make sure you use the right wood glue. I use Type Bond 3 because it is meant for applications like cutting boards and stuff like that. So that wraps up this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the content, go ahead and smash that subscribe button and follow me on Instagram. I really appreciate you guys watching, and until the next time.